Have you ever met someone so arrogant, so careless about consequences that you just knew reality was about to hit them hard? Well, today's story is exactly that, but multiplied by 10. Imagine standing in front of a judge, the person who literally holds your freedom in their hands, the person who can decide whether you walk out of that courtroom or spend months, even years, behind bars. Now imagine responding to that judge with complete disrespect, carelessness, and an attitude that screams, "I don't care." Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what happened in cases we're covering today. This isn't just one story, it's multiple stories of people who thought they were above the law, who treated court like a joke, who believed rules didn't apply to them. And in every single case, they learned the hardest lesson of their lives: justice doesn't care about your attitude. In fact, your attitude might just make things worse. From teenagers who thought they could skip court-ordered programs to adults who showed up to virtual hearings while driving to defendants who curse it at judges, these are real cases where arrogance met its match. So settle in, because for the next 40 minutes we're diving deep into the world of courtroom karma. These are cautionary tales about what happens when you forget that respect isn't optional, it's essential. Let's begin with perhaps the most infuriating case of them all. Our first case involves an 18-year-old girl, let's call her Sarah, who was given one of the most generous second chances you can imagine. But she threw it away with the most ridiculous excuse possible. Sarah had been arrested months earlier for a minor offense. Nothing too serious, the kind of thing that could have been handled with probation, community service, and some required programs. The judge at her initial hearing was lenient, unusually lenient actually. "I'm giving you a huge break," the judge told her back in April. "All you have to do is complete your alcohol screening and assessment and don't miss your drug tests. That's it, just show up, follow the rules, and this all goes away." Sarah nodded, she agreed. She walked out of that courtroom with what many people would consider a gift, a chance to move forward without a permanent mark on her record. But here's the thing about second chances: they only work if you actually use them. 3 months passed, July rolled around, and Sarah's probation officer filed a report. Sarah had missed her scheduled drug test on July 1st. She also never completed her required alcohol screening and assessment through the designated program. So she was back in court, standing before the same judge who had shown her mercy. And this judge remembered her. He remembered the break he'd given her. He remembered her promises. "Why?" the judge asked, his voice already showing frustration. "Why didn't you complete the alcohol screening and assessment, and why did you miss your test on July 1st? Now, this is the moment where any reasonable person would show remorse, maybe explain a genuine emergency, maybe admit they messed up and beg for another chance, maybe show some recognition that they're in serious trouble. But Sarah had a different approach. "I forgot to print it out," she said casually, as if she was explaining why she didn't turn in a homework assignment, as if this was no big deal. The courtroom went quiet. Even the court reporter looked up from her stenography machine. "What?" the judge asked, clearly not believing what he'd just heard. "What did you say?" "I said I forgot to print it out," Sarah repeated with the same casual tone. No apology, no explanation, just, "I forgot." Let me pause here to explain what she was actually saying. The alcohol screening program sends participants information and appointments via email. You're supposed to print out your appointment confirmation and show up. Sarah was claiming that the only reason she missed months of required treatment was because she didn't print out a piece of paper. But here's the thing, you don't need to print anything to show up. The program has your information, they're expecting you. She could have called, she could have gone to the office, she could have done literally anything except nothing. The judge's expression changed. You could see it happening in real time. The patience he'd shown, the second chance he'd given, the hope that maybe this young woman would turn things around, it all evaporated. "Oh, young lady," he said, shaking his head, "you are leaving me with no options." And he meant it, because here's what Sarah didn't understand. Judges don't like revoking probation. They don't enjoy sending people to jail for minor violations. They want to see rehabilitation work. They want to see people succeed. But they also can't let people make a mockery of the system. "I have a feeling that if you don't follow through, I'm going to end up sending you for the maximum time," the judge continued. So in this case, for the bond violation, I'm going to remand you for 3 days. 3 days in jail for forgetting to print out a paper. Except it wasn't really about the paper, was it? It was about the complete disregard for the opportunity she'd been given. It was about the casual attitude towards serious legal requirements. It was about treating the court's mercy like it meant nothing. Sarah's face changed instantly. The casual attitude disappeared. Suddenly she understood that this was real. Suddenly she cared. But it was too late. The bailiff approached. The handcuffs came out. And Sarah was led out of the courtroom to spend 3 days thinking about why I forgot to print it out is possibly the worst excuse you can give a judge. This case perfectly illustrates our first lesson. The court system runs on respect and responsibility. When you show neither, don't be surprised when leniency turns to consequences. If you thought Sarah's case was bad, wait until you hear about what happened during a virtual court hearing in 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic forced courts across America to adapt to virtual hearings. Zoom court became the new normal, and while most people figured out pretty quickly that you should treat a Zoom hearing with the same respect as an in-person appearance, some people didn't get the memo. Enter Corey Harris, a man from Michigan with a suspended license. He had a court hearing scheduled to address his driving violations. The hearing was virtual, which meant he could attend from anywhere with an internet connection. Anywhere: his home, a library, a friend's house, literally anywhere. Guess where Corey decided to attend his court hearing about his suspended license? From behind the wheel of a car, while driving on public roads. I'm not making this up, this actually happened. The judge started the hearing and immediately noticed something odd about Corey's video feed. The background was moving, trees were passing by. Other cars were visible. "Mr. Harris," the judge said slowly, "are you driving right now?" Yes, Your Honor," Corey replied, as if this was completely normal. The judge's expression was priceless. You could see him processing what he was hearing. This man, whose license was suspended, meaning he was legally forbidden from operating a vehicle, was attending his court hearing about that very suspension while actively breaking the law. "So you're telling me you're driving," the judge repeated, "while attending a court hearing for driving with a suspended license?" "I'm pulling into my destination right now," Corey said, still not grasping the problem. The courtroom staff, even though they were all on Zoom, were clearly struggling not to react. Some were muting their microphones, others were visibly shaking their heads. "Mr. Harris, I need you to understand something," the judge said, his voice firm. "You are currently committing the exact crime we're here to discuss, on camera, in front of a judge. Do you see the problem here?" That's when it finally seemed to click for Corey. His face changed. He stopped the car. Your Honor, But there was no explanation that could fix this. No excuse that would make sense. He had literally provided video evidence of himself breaking the law during a hearing about breaking that same law. The judge revoked his bond immediately. Corey was ordered to turn himself in. What should have been a routine hearing about maybe getting his license privileges restored turned into a criminal violation with jail time. But Corey's case wasn't even the only Zoom court disaster during the pandemic. There was the case of a defendant who attended his assault hearing from the same apartment as his victim, who he had a restraining order against. The prosecutor noticed the victim in the background and immediately called it out. The defendant tried to claim it was a different apartment. It was not. He was arrested immediately. There was the woman who attended her DUI hearing while visibly intoxicated. Slurred speech, drinks visible in the background, stumbling when she stood up to adjust her camera. The judge ordered an immediate sobriety test, which she failed spectacularly. There was even a man who attended his hearing shirtless, clearly just woken up, eating cereal, treating the entire proceeding like it was a casual video chat with friends. All of these cases have something in common. People forgot or chose to ignore that a virtual courtroom is still a courtroom. The setting might be different, but the stakes are exactly the same. Your freedom, your record, your future, all of it is still on the line, whether you're standing in front of a judge in person or appearing on a screen. Corey's case went viral, by the way. News outlets across the country covered it. It became a lesson taught in law schools about what not to do, and while some people online found it funny, the consequences for Corey were very, very real. He spent weeks in jail. His case became exponentially more complicated, and all because he couldn't be bothered to find a proper location for his court hearing. This brings us to our second lesson: technology doesn't change the law. Respect and common sense are required regardless of the format. Now let's talk about what happens when disrespect escalates to open contempt of court. Because while forgetting to print papers or driving during a Zoom call shows poor judgment, some defendants take it to a whole different level. Meet Penelope Soto, a young woman from Miami who gave us one of the most infamous courtroom exchanges ever recorded. Penelope was arrested for drug possession. She was brought before Judge Jorge Rodriguez Chamat for a bond hearing, typically a quick, straightforward proceeding where the judge sets bail and moves on. The hearing started normally enough. The judge reviewed the charges, asked about Penelope's background, her employment status, her ties to the community, standard questions. Then came the question about assets. Do you have any valuables on you right now? The judge asked. Jewelry, anything like that? Penelope, wearing expensive-looking jewelry, laughed. Really expensive jewelry, she said with a smirk. The judge, sensing attitude, asked how much it was worth. Like Rick Ross level expensive, Penelope replied sarcastically, referring to the rapper. She was giggling, treating this like a game. The judge's demeanor shifted. So you're not taking this seriously? I am taking it seriously, Penelope said, though her tone suggested otherwise. The judge set her bond at $5,000 and started to wrap up. Penelope, apparently feeling like she'd gotten off easy, said adios flippantly as she turned to leave. Now here's where things went completely off the rails. Excuse me, the judge said. Penelope turned back, irritated. Yes. Did you just say adios to me? Yes, Penelope confirmed, her attitude ramping up. Come back here, the judge ordered. He reset her bond, $10,000. Penelope's mouth dropped open. Are you serious? I am serious, adios, the judge said, dismissing her again. And this is where Penelope made perhaps the worst decision of her life. As she was being led away, she turned back to the judge and flipped him off, showing him her middle finger while saying, F you. The courtroom erupted, bailiffs rushed forward. The judge's face showed a mixture of shock and anger. Come back, he ordered. When Penelope was brought back in front of him, he addressed her directly. I find you in direct criminal contempt, 30 days in the county jail. Penelope's attitude evaporated instantly. Are you serious? She asked, her voice now showing actual fear. I am serious, adios, the judge repeated, throwing her word back at her. 30 days in jail, for what? For disrespecting a judge, for obscene gestures in a courtroom, for treating the legal system like it was a joke. Penelope's case became international news. The video went viral with millions of views. She became a cautionary tale taught in law schools and discussed in legal ethics classes. But here's what happened after the viral moment that most people don't know. Penelope sobered up, literally and figuratively. A few weeks into her sentence, she had the opportunity to appear before Judge Rodriguez Chamat again. This time, she was a completely different person. She apologized sincerely. She explained that she had been high on Xanax during the first hearing and wasn't thinking clearly. She took full responsibility for her actions. The judge, seeing genuine remorse, reduced her contempt sentence. He gave her a second chance. And by all accounts, Penelope learned her lesson. She stayed out of trouble after that, got clean, and moved on with her life. But she easily could have made things so much worse. Some defendants do. There have been cases where defendants physically attacked judges, cases where they threatened court staff, cases where their outbursts led to years of additional prison time. One defendant in Ohio tried to jump over the defense table to attack a judge. He was subdued by bailiffs and added 5 years to his sentence for the attack alone. Another defendant in Las Vegas cursed out a judge so extensively and with such vile language that she added 6 months to his sentence for each outburst, totaling over 2 years of additional time. These aren't isolated incidents. Contempt of court charges are filed thousands of times every year in America. Most are for smaller infractions, talking when you shouldn't, refusing to answer questions, being late to hearings, but they all share the same root cause: failure to respect the authority of the court. Here's the thing people don't understand: judges have tremendous power in their courtrooms. They can hold you in contempt for almost any disrespectful behavior. They can increase your sentence. They can revoke your bail. They can make your life infinitely harder. And they will if you push them. Because the courtroom isn't a democracy, it's not a negotiation. When you're standing before a judge, you're in their domain, under their authority, subject to their decisions. You can disagree with that philosophically all you want, but in the moment in that courtroom, it's reality, and fighting reality rarely ends well. This brings us to our third lesson: the courtroom has rules, breaking them has consequences. Disrespecting the judge multiplies those consequences exponentially. Sometimes the most frustrating cases aren't about dramatic outbursts or shocking disrespect. Sometimes they're about people who just refuse to learn, no matter how many chances they're given. This is the story of Michael, a man in his mid-20s who became the embodiment of failing upward, except instead of upward, he was failing straight into jail. Michael's first offense was minor: possession of marijuana in a state where it wasn't legal. He could have gotten jail time, but the judge was lenient. Probation, drug counseling, community service. Complete those requirements and his record would eventually be expunged. Simple enough, right? Michael missed his first drug counseling session. When asked why, he said he forgot. The judge gave him a warning: don't let it happen again. It happened again and again. Over 6 months, Michael missed more appointments than he attended. He rarely completed his community service hours. His probation officer filed multiple violation reports. Each time, Michael had an excuse: his car broke down, his alarm didn't go off, he got the date wrong, he was sick, he had to work. The excuses were endless and none of them were verifiable. Finally, after the 7th or 8th violation, the judge had enough. Michael was brought back to court for a probation revocation hearing. "Mr. Michael," the judge said, exhaustion evident in his voice, "I have given you more chances than I've given almost anyone. I've been patient. I've been understanding. I've tried to help you succeed, but you're not even trying. Why should I not revoke your probation right now and send you to jail?" Michael shrugged, literally shrugged. "I mean, I've been trying, Your Honor. It's just been hard." "Hard?" the judge repeated. "You know what's hard? Being a single mother working 2 jobs who still shows up to every court-ordered appointment. That's hard. You know what else is hard? Being a recovering addict who fights every day to stay clean and still makes every meeting. That's hard. What you're describing isn't hard, it's lazy." The courtroom was silent. Even Michael's public defender looked uncomfortable. The judge continued, "I'm revoking your probation. You'll serve 90 days in county jail. Maybe that will teach you that second chances aren't infinite." But the story doesn't end there, because Michael's case illustrates a pattern we see repeatedly in the justice system: the chronic noncomplier. These are people who, for whatever reason, immaturity, addiction, mental health issues, or just plain irresponsibility, cannot or will not follow even the simplest court orders. They're given community-based sentences instead of jail time, and they waste every single opportunity. Some of them eventually figure it out. They hit rock bottom, realize the pattern has to change, and finally take responsibility. They complete their programs, stay out of trouble, and move on with their lives. But others keep cycling through the system, violation after violation, arrest after arrest. Each time their situation gets worse, the sentences get longer, the judges get less patient, the options become fewer. There was a case in California of a woman who violated her probation 23 times over 5 years. 23 times. Each violation earned her a warning, an extension, or a brief jail stint, but she never learned. Eventually, a judge sentenced her to the maximum allowable time, and she spent 3 years in prison for what started as a misdemeanor shoplifting charge. 3 years for stealing $50 worth of makeup. Not because of the theft itself, but because she couldn't follow simple probation rules for half a decade. It's tragic in a way, because these aren't usually bad people. They're often people dealing with addiction, poverty, mental health issues, or just general life chaos. The system tries to help them with treatment programs and second chances, but help only works if the person accepts it. And some people don't. They view probation requirements as suggestions rather than orders. They treat court dates as optional. They assume judges will always give them another chance. Until one day the chances run out. Michael served his 90 days. When he was released, he was placed on probation again, this time with strict conditions and electronic monitoring. As of the last public record, he's complied. Maybe jail was the wake-up call he needed. Or maybe he just finally ran out of second chances. This brings us to our fourth lesson. Second chances are gifts, not rights. Waste them repeatedly and eventually there are none left to give. Not all courtroom disasters happen in criminal court. Sometimes the worst behavior comes out during family court proceedings, divorces, custody battles, child support hearings. These cases are already emotionally charged. Add in someone with an entitled attitude and things can explode spectacularly. This case involves a custody hearing between two parents. Let's call them Rachel and Tom. They'd been divorced for 2 years and were battling over their 7-year-old daughter's custody arrangement. The hearing was supposed to be straightforward. Both parents would present their cases, maybe some witnesses would testify, and the judge would make a decision based on what's best for the child. But Rachel had other plans. From the moment the hearing started, Rachel interrupted. The judge would ask Tom a question and Rachel would shout over his answer. The judge would address Rachel's attorney and Rachel would start talking instead. "Ms. Rachel," the judge said after the third or fourth interruption, "you need to wait your turn. Your attorney will present your case." "But he's lying," Rachel protested, pointing at Tom. "Everything he's saying is a lie." "That may be," the judge said patiently, "but you still need to wait your turn. You'll have the opportunity to respond." This continued throughout the hearing. Rachel couldn't contain herself. Every statement from Tom's side was met with outbursts, eye-rolling, dramatic sighs, and muttered comments loud enough for everyone to hear. Her attorney tried to control her, leaning over to whisper calming words, but Rachel wasn't having it. Then came the moment that tanked her entire case. Tom's attorney was questioning him about Rachel's parenting. "Have there been times when Rachel was late picking up your daughter?" "Yes," Tom answered, "multiple times, sometimes hours late." "That's because of work," Rachel shouted, standing up. "I have a job, unlike him sitting on his lazy." "Ms. Rachel," the judge interrupted sharply, "sit down now." Rachel sat, but she was fuming, and she wasn't done. Tom's attorney continued, "And has your daughter expressed any concerns about her mother's home?" "She's mentioned that her mom has different men over a lot," Tom said carefully. "She's confused about who they are." Rachel exploded. How dare you, you're going to sit there and..." "That's it," the judge said, his voice cutting through Rachel's tirade like a knife. "Ms. Rachel, I've been patient, I've given you multiple warnings, but your behavior is completely inappropriate. Your constant interruptions, your disrespect for this proceeding, it's not helping your case. In fact, it's actively hurting it." Rachel's attorney put his head in his hands. The judge continued, "Based on what I've seen today, I'm seriously concerned about your ability to co-parent effectively. I'm awarding primary custody to the father. You'll have supervised visitation until you complete a court-ordered anger management program." Rachel's mouth fell open. "You can't do that. You can't take my daughter away from me because I defended myself." "I'm not taking your daughter away," the judge corrected. "I'm making a decision based on what I believe is in her best interest, and part of that decision is based on the behavior you've displayed in this courtroom. If this is how you act here, I'm concerned about how you act at home." The hearing ended. Rachel lost primary custody. Her outbursts, her inability to control her emotions, her disrespect for the process, all of it counted against her. Here's what many people don't understand about family court: judges are evaluating you constantly. They're not just listening to testimony, they're watching how you behave, how you react, how you handle stress, how you treat the other parent. Because if you can't control yourself in a courtroom where you know you're being judged, how will you behave at home? How will you handle the inevitable conflicts of co-parenting? There have been cases where parents lost custody largely due to courtroom behavior. One mother brought her new boyfriend to a custody hearing and was openly affectionate with him, kissing, holding hands, while her ex-husband testified about her affair. The judge found it disrespectful and ruled against her. Another father showed up to a hearing late, unprepared and smelling of alcohol. He claimed he just had one beer to calm his nerves. The judge ordered immediate drug and alcohol testing, which the father failed. He lost all unsupervised visitation. Family court judges see the worst of human behavior. Divorces bring outrage, jealousy, vindictiveness, and pain. But the ones who keep their composure, who focus on their children rather than revenge, who respect the process, those are the ones who fare better. Because ultimately, family court isn't about punishing anyone. It's about protecting children. And children are better off with parents who can manage their emotions, respect boundaries, and follow rules. Rachel eventually completed her anger management program. She regained unsupervised visitation, but she never got primary custody back. That one hearing, those outbursts, that disrespect, it defined her case. This brings us to our fifth lesson. In court, your behavior speaks louder than your words. Judges are always watching, always evaluating. Give them reasons to trust you, not reasons to doubt you. Let's return to where we started, with young people who don't understand that the legal system isn't something you can charm or laugh your way through. This case involves Jake, a 19-year-old college student from a wealthy family. Jake was arrested for DUI after crashing his car into a mailbox. No one was hurt, but his blood alcohol level was nearly twice the legal limit. At his first court appearance, Jake's parents hired an expensive attorney. The attorney negotiated a deal. Jake would plead guilty to a reduced charge, complete a DUI education program, pay fines, and serve probation. No jail time. His record could potentially be expunged after successful completion. It was, by any measure, an excellent deal. Many people in Jake's situation end up with much harsher sentences. But Jake had to hold up his end, complete the program, stay out of trouble, follow probation rules. Simple enough. Except Jake didn't think the rules applied to him, because they never had before. Jake was the kid who got caught drinking in high school and whose parents made it go away, who got academic probation for plagiarism and whose parents donated to get it removed, who'd been bylaid out of every consequence his entire life. So when his probation officer called to schedule his first meeting, Jake didn't call back. When his DUI class sent him the schedule, he didn't attend. When his attorney called to check on his progress, Jake didn't return the call. Months passed. His probation officer filed a violation report. Jake was ordered back to court. His attorney, clearly frustrated, tried to prepare him. You need to take this seriously. The judge gave you an incredible deal. Don't blow it. But when Jake stood before the judge, his attitude said everything. Mr. Jake, the judge began, you've violated the terms of your probation in multiple ways. You haven't attended a single DUI education class. You've missed every meeting with your probation officer. You haven't paid your fines. Why? Jake shrugged. I've been busy with school. Busy with school, the judge repeated flatly. You're telling me that in 6 months you couldn't find time to attend 8 hours of DUI classes? I mean, I have a really hard course load, Jake said, as if this explained everything. The judge looked at Jake's file. I see here that you posted on social media about attending multiple parties, going on spring break, and playing in an intramural sports league. But you were too busy for 8 hours of classes. Jake's attorney closed his eyes, knowing where this was going. Your Honor, the attorney interjected, my client acknowledges he's made mistakes. This isn't a mistake, the judge interrupted. A mistake is missing one class. This is a complete disregard for the court's order. This is a young man who thinks the rules don't apply to him. The judge addressed Jake directly. Do you think you're special? Do you think because your parents can afford a good attorney that you don't have to follow the same rules as everyone else? For the first time, Jake looked uncomfortable. No, Your Honor. Then why are you acting like it? The judge let the question hang in the air. I'm revoking your probation. You're remanded to custody for 90 days. Maybe that will teach you that actions have consequences. Jake's face went white. Wait, what? Jail? You can't. I can and I am, the judge said firmly. Bailiff. Jake's parents, sitting in the gallery, looked shocked. His mother started crying. His father stood up as if to protest, but his attorney pulled him back down. Jake was handcuffed and led away, still seemingly unable to process what was happening. Here's what happened next. According to public records, Jake served his 90 days. It was, by all accounts, a wake-up call. He'd never faced real consequences before. He'd never been in an environment where his family's money and connections meant nothing. When he was released, he was a different person. He completed his DUI program immediately. He attended every probation meeting. He paid all his fines. He stayed out of trouble. Years later, in an interview with his college newspaper, Jake admitted, "That was the best thing that could have happened to me. I was a spoiled brat who thought I was above everyone else. Jail humbled me real quick." But not everyone learns the lesson. Some wealthy kids continue to skate through life, leaving destruction in their wake, always having someone bail them out. There's the infamous case of affluenza teen Ethan Couch, who killed 4 people in a drunk driving accident. His attorney argued he suffered from affluenza, being so wealthy and privileged that he didn't understand consequences. He got probation. Then he violated that probation and fled to Mexico with his mother. He eventually served jail time, but many felt justice was never truly served. There are countless cases of wealthy defendants getting lenient sentences because they can afford better attorneys, rehabilitation programs, and alternative sentencing options that poorer defendants never get access to. But here's the thing, even the best attorney can't save you from yourself. Even money can't buy respect for the law, and eventually, if you push hard enough, even privilege runs out. The judges who handle these cases see it all the time. The wealthy kid who thinks he's untouchable, the privileged defendant who treats court like an inconvenience, the person who's never heard no in their entire life suddenly facing a system that doesn't care about their parents' bank account. Some learn, some don't, but the ones who don't, they keep ending up back in court with judges who get less and less patient each time. This brings us to our 6th lesson. Privilege might get you better representation, but it won't get you respect. That you have to earn, and you earn it through your actions, not your bank account. We've covered a lot of cases today. From Sarah, who forgot to print her paperwork, to Corey, who attended court while driving, to Penelope, who flipped off a judge, to Jake, whose privilege couldn't save him from consequences. These cases all share common threads. First, a fundamental misunderstanding of what court is. It's not a negotiation. It's not optional. It's not something you can charm your way through. It's a formal legal proceeding with real stakes and real consequences. Second, a lack of respect for the judge, for the process, for the law itself. This disrespect manifests in different ways: casual attitudes, outbursts, violations of orders, outright contempt. But it all comes from the same place, a belief that somehow the rules don't fully apply. Third, a failure to recognize opportunity. Every person in these cases was given chances, some multiple chances, lenient sentences, probation instead of jail, warnings instead of revocations, but they treated these opportunities like they were worthless. Fourth, an eventual reckoning. In every case, there came a moment when patience ran out, when the second chances stopped, when reality hit hard and fast. But here's what's important to understand. These cases are the exceptions that prove the rule. For every defendant who disrespects the court, there are hundreds who don't. Who show up on time, who follow their probation conditions, who complete their programs, who take responsibility for their actions. And those people, they fare much better. Their cases often end with dismissed charges, expunged records, or sentences that allow them to move forward with their lives. The justice system isn't perfect. There are legitimate criticisms about inequality, bias, overcriminalization, and harsh sentencing. These are real problems that deserve serious discussion and reform. But within that imperfect system, individuals still have agency. You can't control the laws, you can't control the judge you get, you can't always control the outcome. But you can control your attitude, your behavior, your effort, your respect. And that matters more than you might think. Judges are human beings. They want to see people succeed. They want to give second chances. They want to believe that rehabilitation is possible. But they also have a responsibility to uphold the law, to protect public safety, and to ensure that the justice system maintains its integrity. When you disrespect the court, you're not just disrespecting the judge. You're disrespecting every person who follows the rules, who takes the process seriously, who respects the system even when they disagree with it. So if you ever find yourself in court, hopefully you won't, but if you do, remember these stories. Remember Sarah's casual "I forgot to print it." Remember Corey driving during his hearing. Remember Penelope's middle finger. Remember Jake's entitled shrug. And then do the opposite. Show up on time, dress appropriately, address the judge as "Your Honor," listen carefully, answer honestly, follow your attorney's advice, take every order seriously, complete every requirement. Not because you're afraid, though healthy respect for consequences is smart, but because it's the right thing to do. Because the courtroom is one of the few places in our society where accountability is still enforced, where excuses don't matter, where your actions determine your outcomes. And while that might seem harsh, it's also fair, because the rules apply to everyone equally, or at least they're supposed to. So the next time you hear someone complaining about a court case going badly for them, ask them, did you show up? Did you follow the rules?